Do you know the value of $1? Do you know the value of a legendary wolf girl waifu? Get in, loser. We're going shopping. Craft singles. Macroeconomics. This is the day that the Lord has made. Feast no longer from the fields of this piece of trash. We worship at the altar of a new and modern spicy wolf. This is the naked wolf god that the Lord has made. This is Spicy Wolf. Merchant encounters smart dog.
Bark, bark.
Quiet, you. Rejoice, anime fans of 15 years ago. Your long winter has melted into spring. Holo and Lawrence return with a brand spankin' same story as last time. If you enjoy witty and theatrical dialogue, Spicy Wolf. If you enjoy detailed and cozy settings with interesting folk peppered throughout like thrown out pepper, Spicy Wolf. If you enjoy intricate political and interpersonal conflict where I'm not done. If you enjoy intricate political and interpersonal conflict where smart people have to talk and scheme their way out of unique, complex situations lest they be worked to death in the galleys of a merchant ship. Now, spice that wolf. Thank you. Here are the numbers you care about. 8 out of 10. Good numbers. Fun, melodramatic dialogue. Thematically resonant nudity. Climb into my cart, friend, and join me on our exploration of the exciting world of competitive ranked futures trading. This is Spice and Wolf. Merchant meets the wise wolf. Nagai tabi no tochu kimi ni. Hold up a sec, actually. Let me just wait. There it is. Why are all these so low? Before I do anything else, I just want to address the fact that this is a remake of Spice and Wolf, a very popular anime. Hold up, there's a typo here. Oh? No, 17 years ago, huh? My fellow olds and I are singing in the streets at the thought of seeing our favorite lupine waifu grace our screens again, so I should mention that for the purpose of this review, I'm going to treat this show as though it does not exist. We'll be discussing Merchant Meets the Wise Wolf on its own merits with no regard at all for the existence of the original adaptation. For what it's worth, I think the new one is better in most ways, even if the old one has better art and a top 10 of all time OP. Okay, play the song now. 思うその度失う怖さに気づいた All the folks down in town loved Wolf's Giving a lot, but the wolf who had gave them Wolf's Giving did not. The wolf hates Wolf's Giving the whole harvest season, and it turns out her hatred has quite the good reason. No matter the care she puts into the wheat, all the villagers treat her like dung on their feet. They deny all her help, and they call her a fraud, for the people of Pazlo have found a new god. Then along comes a trader by the name of Craft Lawrence with a cart full of furs that he found in the forests. And a plan starts to hatch in the wolf's wolfy head. Why stay here when a wolf could go elsewhere instead? So she hopped in the wheat that he had in his cart, hoping famine would tear the whole village apart, and when Lawrence did see her bare-assed on the pelts, she said, I am Holo the Wise Wolf, goddess of harvests and leader of all things wild. Deliver me safely to my home in the north, peon, or the last warmth you feel in life will be the acid of my entrails rending your skin from its bone. And Lawrence, on seeing this frightening display, felt something of his grow 3 sizes that day. He agreed to her terms, and the pair did depart, with coin in their pockets and love in their cart. Why, yes, I do have a Patreon, link in the description. Adventure, romance. This is the 10th grade economics lesson that the Lord has made. Plottifically speaking, Spice and Wolf is mostly an adventure show, wherein Lawrence Spice and Hololive the Wolf Girl rinky-dink their way around the land getting into mischief and making bank. The strength of an adventure show rests on its ability to present the viewer with interesting locations and engaging plots, and despite the fact that it is a show about currency, Spice and Wolf is one of the best examples of that you can find. The show takes place in a very grounded and realistic European-coded setting. There are hardly any monsters, basically no magic, and even the more traditionally exciting parts of real-world history, like knights and peasant uprisings, are scarce. There are no dragons hoarding grimoires on the edge of town, and no strange rabbit folk bogarting the recipe for the suppository you need to keep your poison companion from throwing up the last of her blood. Instead, this series introduces itself with a 5-episode plot about seigniorage, and it is gripping. Craft Lawrence is a merchant, and his problems are going to revolve around making and losing money. If you have ever tried to make or lose money, you'll understand that it is a complicated business, and so the trouble that Lawrence gets up to is not the usual kind of trouble you will see in an anime. Spice and Wolf is a show that's going to reward your attention. The plots are complex, unique, and they rely on you having a basic understanding of 200-level economics. So unless you already have enough money to be part of the problem, put the phone down and glue your eyes to the wolf. What you will find between her scintillating furs is a smattering of stories that will wet the whistle of any anime fan who is just plain tired. Tired of half-baked fantasy worlds, tired of skittish romances that refuse to advance themselves, tired of the same 6 plots popping up in everything from Acapella Samurai to Zutosuki Data. Don't look that up. The most remarkable thing about Spice and Wolf is how original it is, with plots having to deal with sheep smuggling, one-sided wheat trading contracts, pyrite speculation, and bets on the marriage of the indebted canine nun. If you like the idea of a show whose exciting tune-in next week cliffhanger involves Lawrence having a revelation about how a person can make money by lowering the value of a silver coin, then Spice and Wolf is the show for you. But if you're less of an economics person and more of a socio-economics person, let me direct your attention instead to the church. The one true church. The church that the Lord has made. Gather your piety and wear your amorphous symbol around your neck. Old men in funny hats are going on a continent-wide crusade against paganism.
Bark, bark.
What's that, boy?
Bark, bark.
One of our main characters is paganism. Well, that's not good. Can Lawrence and Holo outwit the agents of God and make it to Holo's home in the north without being burned at the stake? It's less likely than you think. But the uniqueness of the plot is not even the reason that the series is consistently held in such high esteem. The true majesty of Spicy Wolf lies squarely in the laps of this 26-year-old man and his top 5 of all-time wolf girl waifu. In a show that has only 2 consistently recurring characters, these are the 2 characters you want to have recur. Let's talk about them. 笑い合える居場所紡ぐ道へ These are some funny-looking high school students. While anime has gotten better in recent years at creating stories that involve characters of all ages, it would be wrong to say that we're not still plagued by an overabundance of adolescent melodrama. But not here! The melodrama of Spicy Wolf is perfectly adult, thank you very much. Behold Craft Lawrence, the wizened and experienced trader who wants nothing more than to settle down with a nice storefront and make his customers come to him for a change, and Holo, the hot naked furry. By their powers combined, we have a brewing romance that's sure to spring life into the withered loins of even the most jaded enjoyer of Japanimation. But even notwithstanding the fact that Holo and Lawrence are literally adults, the maturity of their narrative and their interactions with each other is very refreshing, especially for an anime romance. Even among adult romance, there's a tendency for characters to severely overreact whenever the metaphorical envelope of love gets pushed. Accidentally touching hands is grounds for making a face like this, and God forbid you share an indirect kiss. This kind of storytelling can be cute and it can be effective, but it gets tiresome quickly, especially if you're one of the unfortunate souls who watches as much anime as I do. Spicy Wolf takes all of those tingling, anticipatory feelings of budding love and throws them straight into the Patio Canal. Holo is introduced naked, and not for the sake of giving the viewer something fun to look at. There is no boob jiggle, no slow pans of the camera across her milky canine thighs. You'll have to go to Damboru for that. Instead, she's naked because she is a god and a dog, and neither of those things cares very much for the restrictions of human modesty. Lawrence, for his part, is a fully realized adult man, and he doesn't react like a cartoon character in the presence of a naked anime girl. Instead, he reacts like a fully realized adult man in the presence of a terrifying wolf god. Holo's godly nature provides a strong foundation for her character, causing her to be at once regal and petulant in a way that not many fictional characters can pull off. It's very difficult to write someone who has the degree of pride that Holo has without making them come off as a whiny child when they don't get their way, and while Spicy Wolf doesn't always hit that mark, it is generally very good at making sure its characters' actions and emotions make sense. When Holo pouts after not getting something, it feels like her sense of godly entitlement on display. When she despairs at the thought of feeling alone, it feels like it's coming from someone who has spent centuries separated from her people, unappreciated in a foreign land. Lawrence likewise feels like someone who has cultivated his craft over the last 20 years, which is strange because he is, again, 26 years old. Much of the praise for this series comes from people wanting to pat Holo little head, she good girl, yes she is, and I don't blame them for that one bit. But Lawrence also deserves his share of the accolades. Think of a character like Light Yagami or Sora No Game No Life, someone who solves problems with their wits and their ability to plan ahead in complicated situations. Now imagine that kind of character is often wrong, and that some of those complicated situations they find themselves in are the result of their own understandable mistakes. Now I enjoy shows like Death Note, where a super-brained protagonist finds themselves in an exaggerated battle of wits against an equally super-brained left-brained monkey man who's bent on noting their death. But there's something to be said about watching a normal guy with a little more brain and a lot more experience than the average person using his specialized knowledge to solve problems. Sometimes his solutions work, sometimes they don't, sometimes they create new problems. To put it simply, Lawrence is a merchant, not a mastermind, and that's typically a good thing for creating narrative opportunities. But the best part of the characterization of Spice and Wolf is the way these two play off of each other, shore up each other's weaknesses, and generally help each other grow as people. Just for one example, Holo and Lawrence are both lonely individuals, but they're lonely in different and complementary ways. Holo wants nothing more than to go back to her home in the north where she is respected and loved. Being the harvest god of this podunk town has had her feeling trapped and secluded. There's a reason why the person who symbolically becomes Holo during the harvest festival is locked in the church by themselves. It's a lonesome and stifling existence. Lawrence is lonely for the exact opposite reason. He's transient, moving around the land with no real home to call his own. He has acquaintances in every town on the map, and he can find a drinking partner in any bar where God's light shines through the windows, but he can't form deep connections. He has no roots, no touch points, nothing that makes his life feel solid and real. And the two of them solve those problems for each other. Holo gets the opportunity to get some fresh air, get out, see the world, have new experiences, and find people who appreciate her for who she is and what she does. Lawrence has a constant traveling companion, someone he knows is always going to be there, no matter how far his cart may roll. And speaking of characters interacting with each other, the way Lawrence deals with other people, especially antagonists in the series, is very different from other shows for a very simple reason. This is a show about merchants. With very rare exceptions, pretty much everyone we see on screen has the same goal. They want to make money. And so no matter what faction they're aligned with or what their personal feelings are toward Lawrence and Holo, they are going to perform the action that makes them the most money. If turning Holo into the church and getting a reward is something that they need to do to pay off a loan, they're going to do that unless Lawrence can come up with a better plan for getting them even more money. What's interesting is that the financial motivations of every character make it to where nobody really has any hard feelings toward anyone else. There's one scene near the beginning where Lawrence is talking with a representative of a company called Mylone Trading. For various reasons, their negotiations involve a couple of bad possibilities for Lawrence, which include handing him over to a group that has explicitly tried to kill him and working him to death in the galleys of Mylone Trading's merchant ships for not being able to pay off some money he owes. But even in the face of those awful fates, Lawrence never yells. He never says, "What is this injustice? How could you do this to me? Have we not had a profitable business relationship all these years? Dear representative of Mylone Trading, am I not a man?" He holds his chin, he nods his head, and he says, No, I understand that killing and or enslaving me is currently the best financial decision for your company, but let's see if we can find a way to change that so that we both benefit, It's crazy, and obviously it's a very idealized representation of 17th century European mercantilism. But once you buy into that mindset, it provides very refreshing interactions for people who are used to anime devolving into screaming matches and fistfights. But that's not to say the show isn't dramatic in a very literal sense. Now, you know me by now, I am a dub guy, so if you watch the sub, which I hear is incredible, there's a chance that what I'm about to talk about might not be as prominent of a feature. But the dialogue in this one feels like it was written for a stage play more than for an anime. Personally, I love it, but I can understand how some people would look at the theatrical tone of some of these scenes and get that face that you get when someone is trying to sell you obvious crap. These are all direct quotes, and they are all from the same episode.
But these old pages aren't worth your tears.
Do you really place so high value on the pearls of my eyes as to lament their wasting? Perhaps then I should weep and become rich.
If life in all its strangeness can present a count with a beer-brewing maiden to aid him, well then, would it be so odd for it to bestow upon a merchant some equally wondrous advantage?
Huh? You have a fairy on your side or something?
This form is the only human visage I can take.
That's unfortunate. As it happens, I prefer a woman with a more ample figure to flaunt.
If that kind of dialogue is going to make pearls fall from your eyes, then it's possible that this show is going to get on your nerves a bit. But honestly, I love watching these two set up and knock down each other's witticisms, no matter how contrived those setups may be. But as someone who's equally fond of dialogue like this, I think it's possible that I sometimes enjoy novelty more than I appreciate quality, so keep that in mind before you take my word for anything. ほらまるで地雲のように 行方わからない旅でもただ進もう. Spicy Wolf good. Its biggest strength comes from the fact that it is different from everything else. Even though it takes place in a familiar and easily understandable fantasy world with no tricks or frills, its subject matter provides much needed variety to the anime landscape, and it's able to execute on the promise of that subject matter with grace and talent. The characters are complex, and while they can sometimes veer into proper melodrama territory, like when Holo clutches a letter with her hand and falls against a window weeping like a Victorian widow whose only male child just died in the war, that melodrama is well realized, entertaining to watch, and makes sense from the perspective of the characters. All in all, this is one of the most anticipated anime of the last 20 years, and it deserves every second of agony its fans endured while asking Season 3 when. Since the refreshingly unique nature of Spice and Wolf is part of what makes it so appealing, it's difficult to recommend other series that are like it, but I do have a few you can check out. If you like the episodic, town-hopping nature of Spice and Wolf, where an experienced tradesman solves relatively slow-paced problems in beautiful environments, you should watch Mushishi, a show about a medicine man going from town to town using his shamanic expertise to help bring spirits to rest and peace to the living townsfolk he encounters along the way. If you like the intentionally theatrical dialogue and highly character-driven melodrama, you would enjoy Showa Genroku Rakugo Shinju, the story of two Rakugo performers dealing with love, work, and the death of an art form as the world they know fades away and the future takes hold. And if you liked Spice and Wolf for the well-handled and mature romance, you'll probably find either After the Rain or Recovery of an MMO Junkie to be right up your alley. Though MMO Junkie has more of a lighthearted and comedic vibe, and I would call After the Rain more of a coming-of-age story than a romance. That's it! The topic of this video was voted on by my patrons from among the 4 most popular anime whose first seasons finished in summer 24. If you want to say in what video gets made now, okay, let's be honest, if you want to vote either for or against Dan being the topic of my next video, you can go to patreon.com/explanationpoint, where every patron of every tier gets 1 vote on what they want to hear about next. And actually, Ranma is beating Dan by a decent margin right now, so if you're a Dan fan, you might want to go and vote. Winner of the most recent poll was Makein, Too Many Losing Heroines, so make sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to hear a mediocre acapella cover of that OP. Today's lucky patron is So-and-So-King, a $1 patron since December 2017. Fine, loser, be like that. You were always just $1 to me. I don't care about the support you've been giving me since 2017. Please come back. I really need to get these videos out faster. If you'd like to have a chance to be today's lucky patron or to join our Discord server, Minecraft server, video game hangouts, monthly anime club discussions, or to have your name on this list of people who are helping me to keep my lights on in this year of unthinkable horrors, you can go to patreon.com/explanationpoint to find out how. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, bell, etc. And until next time, this has been Explanation Point, signing out. 寝たら風立つ向こう側踏み出して手をつなぎ歩き気づけたいよあの空祈ろう涙拭って